Hey, welcome back. Really glad you're here. I've got a big pile of emails to get through today, so I'm just going to jump straight in. As always, thank you to everyone who wrote in. It genuinely means a lot that you trust this inbox with your stuff. If you're new here, people send in their stories and I read them while I mess around in Minecraft. That's pretty much the whole thing. Alright, this first one is titled, "My best friend has been dating my ex and hid it from me. So I'm a 22-year-old woman and I genuinely do not know how to feel right now, which is why I'm writing this to a stranger on the internet, I guess. Bear with me. Me and my best friend, I'll call her Dana, have been close since we were about 12. Like a decade of friendship. Sleepovers, holidays together. She was there when my grandma died. I was there when she got her heart broken for the first time. That kind of closeness. I really thought I knew everything about her. About 2 years ago, I broke up with my boyfriend. I'll call him Ryan. We were together for about a year and a half, and the breakup was mutual and pretty calm. No cheating, no huge blow-up fight. We just weren't working anymore, and we both knew it. I was sad about it for a while, but I moved on. I don't have feelings for Ryan anymore. I want to make that really clear because it matters for how I feel about this whole situation. So last month, I went to my cousin's engagement party. Pretty low-key, nothing crazy. And I'm standing near the food table talking to my aunt when I look across the room and I see Dana, which was a little surprising because I didn't know she was coming, but my cousin knows her, so I figured she got an invite too, and just didn't mention it. And then I see who she walked in with. It was Ryan, and they were holding hands. I just stood there for a second, like my brain genuinely did not process it fast enough. I watched them walk in together and find seats together, and at one point, he leaned over and said something in her ear, and she laughed and put her head on his shoulder. And I'm standing there, holding a mini quiche, feeling like I'm losing my mind. I didn't say anything at the party. I just kind of floated through the rest of it and went home and sat on my bathroom floor for a while. I texted Dana that night and just said, "Hey, can we talk tomorrow?" And she replied really fast and said, "Of course. Is everything okay?" And I just said, "Yeah. Just want to catch up." We got coffee the next morning, and I asked her straight up. I said, "Are you and Ryan dating?" And the look on her face told me everything before she even opened her mouth. She went completely still, and then she said, "Yes." And then she said she was going to tell me, but she didn't know how. And I asked her how long, and she said 4 months. 4 months. I just kept thinking about all the times over those 4 months that we had hung out and talked on the phone, and she had said absolutely nothing. She had sat across from me at dinner and looked me in the eyes and said nothing. I didn't yell or cry or anything like that. I just told her that I felt really blindsided and that I needed some time. And she kept saying she was sorry and that she was scared to hurt me, and I just couldn't really hear it in that moment. It's been 2 weeks now, and we've barely spoken. And here's the thing that's been messing with me. I don't think I actually care that she's dating Ryan. I'm not jealous in that way. What I feel is just this deep kind of hurt that she hid it from me, that she made that choice over and over for 4 months, and every single time she decided that keeping the secret was better than telling me. That's the part I can't shake. But then I also keep asking myself if I'm being unfair. She was probably scared. She probably didn't know how to bring it up. And it's not like she did anything wrong exactly. She just hid something from me. Is that worth blowing up a 10-year friendship over? I really don't know. I just needed to get this out somewhere. So here's the thing. I don't think you're being unfair at all. The way you broke it down at the end of your email is actually really clear-headed. You've already identified that you're not upset about who she's dating. You're upset that she looked you in the face for 4 months and said nothing. And I think that's a completely legitimate thing to be heard about, because here's what the 4 months tells you. It wasn't like she was figuring out how to tell you and just needed a little time. 4 months is a decision. Every single week that went by was another decision to keep it from you. And I think when you're as close as you and Dana are, that kind of thing stings in a way that's hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it. It's not about Ryan. It's about the fact that she didn't trust you, or didn't trust the friendship enough to just tell you. That said, I do think her reasoning makes some sense on a human level. Even if the outcome wasn't great, she was probably scared. She probably played out all these scenarios in her head about how you'd react and talked herself out of telling you every time. That's cowardly, yeah, but it's also just very human. I think if this friendship means as much to you as it sounds like it does, it's probably worth having a real conversation with her when you're ready. Not to let her off the hook, but to actually say out loud what you said in this email, that you're not upset about Ryan, that you're upset that she hid it, because I think she might actually not fully understand that distinction yet, and it matters. But take your time. You don't have to rush back to normal. This next one is titled, I Quit My Job and My Parents Think I Ruined My Life. I'm 19 and I just quit my part-time job at a home goods store, and my parents have completely lost it over it. I want to know if I made a mistake or if I actually did the right thing. So for some context, I've been working at this place since I was 17. It was fine for a long time. The pay wasn't great, but the people were mostly okay, and it was easy enough to manage around school. I started college this year and kept the job because I needed money, and my parents made it pretty clear that once I was in college, their financial support was going to get a lot more limited. Fair enough, I get it. My manager, I'll call him Greg, had always been a little short with people, but nothing that crossed a line. Just one of those guys who gets stressed and snaps a bit. Most of us just dealt with it. But about 2 months ago, something shifted, and I genuinely don't know if something happened in his personal life or what, but he just became a completely different person to work for. Constantly criticizing everything, redoing tasks that were perfectly fine, talking to staff in this really condescending way that made everyone uncomfortable. The general vibe of the whole store just got really bad. I let it go for a while. I told myself it was temporary, that he was going through something, whatever. Then about 3 weeks ago, I was in the middle of a shift. We were pretty busy, and I made a mistake with a return transaction. Not a huge deal, it happens. It was fixable. But Greg came over, and instead of just correcting it quietly, he stood there and went off on me in front of a line of customers and like 4 other coworkers. He was saying things like, "This is so basic. How do you not know this by now? I have no idea how you're in college if you can't figure this out." I just stood there. I was so caught off guard that I didn't even say anything. The customers were clearly uncomfortable. I finished that transaction and went to the back and just sat there for a minute, and I decided I was done. I went back out, told Greg I needed to talk to him, went into the back office, and I quit on the spot. I gave him nothing. No 2 weeks, no formal notice. I just said I'm done, and I left. And honestly, walking out of that building felt incredible, like genuinely one of the better feelings I've had in a while. Until I got home and told my parents. My mom went quiet in that way that's somehow worse than yelling. My dad did yell, a little. They both kept saying the same things. You can't just walk out. You burned a bridge. What about a reference? You have bills now. You have to learn to deal with difficult people. And the one that really got me, which was, you can't just quit every time something gets hard. And that one kind of stuck, because now I'm second guessing myself. Like, did I overreact? Was I just too sensitive? Should I have just taken it and moved on? I don't think you overreacted. I want to say that first. There's a version of your parents' advice that is genuinely useful, and it's the general idea that you will have to deal with difficult people throughout your life and you can't always just walk away. That's true, but I think they're applying that lesson to the wrong situation here. What you described isn't just a difficult manager. What you described is a grown adult humiliating a 19-year-old kid in front of customers and colleagues over a minor transaction error. That's not a hard situation you need to toughen up through. That's someone abusing the power they have over you. And the fact that you sat in the back for a minute, made a decision, and handled it calmly and directly is actually pretty impressive for 19. Now, the practical stuff. The no-notice thing is worth thinking about. Not because Greg deserved 2 weeks, but just because it can occasionally come back to bite you, depending on the industry. For a part-time retail job, it's probably fine, but going forward, it's worth keeping in mind. The reference thing is also a little overblown by your parents. You're 19. Nobody applying for jobs at your stage is expected to have an airtight professional reference list. You'll be fine. I do think your parents mean well, and they're just scared that you're going to develop a habit of bailing when things get uncomfortable, which is a reasonable fear for a parent to have. But I think if you sit them down and explain exactly what happened, the public humiliation, the customers watching, the whole thing, they might come around a little. Or they won't, and you just move forward anyway and find a better job. Good luck with the search. All right. This next one is titled, I Got My Dream Job, but I Can't Bring Myself to Take It. This one hit me a little differently when I read it, so bear with me here. I'm 24, and I've been the primary caregiver for my two younger brothers since I was about 18. My mom has a chronic illness that makes it really hard for her to manage things on her own. My dad hasn't been in the picture since I was in high school, so when I graduated and my brothers were 11 and 13, I just kind of stepped into that role naturally. Grocery shopping, school pickups, appointments, cooking most nights, all of it. I'm not writing this looking for sympathy. I want to be clear about that. I love my mom and I love my brothers, and I made that choice and I don't regret it. But I also kept living my life during those years. I finished a degree, I worked, I built up some skills and experience in my field, which is urban planning. It took a lot longer than it would have otherwise, but I got there. Last month, I got an offer from a firm in another city, a real offer, not entry level, something I actually worked toward. Good salary, interesting work, the kind of thing I had written on a list in my notes app when I was like 20 and convinced myself would never actually happen. And I have been sitting on it for 3 weeks. My brothers are 17 and 19 now. They're not little kids anymore. The 19-year-old is actually starting community college in the fall. My mom's condition has been stable for the past year, which is relatively good for her. Objectively, this is probably the best window I'm going to get. But here's what I keep running into. My mom has bad days. Some weeks, she has a lot of them, and on those days, she really needs someone there. My brothers are getting older, but they're still figuring out their own lives, and I don't think it's fair to drop all of that on them. And the city where this job isn't close. It's a flight, not a drive. I feel like I've spent 6 years putting this family first, and I don't resent that. But I also feel like every time I try to imagine actually leaving, something in me just shuts down. And then I feel guilty for even considering it. Like, who am I to want something for myself when my mom is still sick and my brothers still need someone in their corner? I don't know. I just needed to say it out loud somewhere, because I feel like everyone around me either tells me to just go and doesn't fully understand what I'd be leaving, or they make me feel like wanting to go at all is selfish. Neither of those feels right. I've been sitting here thinking about how to respond to this for a minute, because I don't want to give you some oversimplified take. First thing I want to say is that nothing about wanting this makes you selfish. You gave 6 years. 6 years of grocery runs and school pickups and appointments and cooking and showing up consistently for people who needed you. You did not pause your life for 6 years because you had to. You did it because you love your family. And the fact that you now want something for yourself does not cancel any of that out. The thing that jumped out at me in your email was this line. I feel like I physically can't picture it. And I wonder how much of that is a practical concern, and how much of it is just that you've spent so long in caregiver mode that imagining yourself outside of it feels almost wrong. Like you've built an identity around being the person who stays, and the idea of not being that person anymore is disorienting. That's not a reason to stay. That's just something worth being aware of. On the practical side, your brothers are 17 and 19. Your mom has been stable. I'm not going to pretend that means everything will be fine the moment you leave, because chronic illness is unpredictable, and I know that. But I do think it's worth having a real honest conversation with your brothers about what capacity they'd have to step up, rather than assuming the answer before you ask the question. The 19-year-old especially. He might surprise you. Thanks for writing in. Genuinely hoping you go for it. So this next email is titled, I told my roommate how I felt, and now everything is weird. So I'm 20, and I need to get this out because I've been carrying it around for weeks, and I genuinely don't know what to do with it. I started college this year and got paired with a random roommate. I'll call him Marcus. and I want to be upfront about something before I get into this. I'm gay. I came out to my close friends and family about a year ago, and it went fine, but I'm still pretty selective about who I tell in new situations. So when I moved in with Marcus, I wasn't planning on saying anything about it unless it came up naturally. Marcus turned out to be one of the best people I've ever met. Within the first month, I'd told him I was gay, and he just said, "Cool, thanks for telling me," and moved on. No big deal. I actually felt more comfortable in that room than I had anywhere in a long time, and then somewhere, between month 1 and month 3, I realized I had developed feelings for him. I tried to just let it go. I told myself it was just because we were close and spending so much time together, and that it would pass. But it didn't really pass. It just kind of sat there. And then one night we were both up late and we'd been talking for a couple hours about nothing in particular, and I just told him. I don't even fully know why I did it in that moment. It just came out. I told him that I liked him and that I wasn't expecting anything, and that I just felt like I needed to say it. He was really kind about it. He said he was flattered and that he wasn't gay, and that he hoped it didn't change things between us. And I said of course not, and we kind of just went to sleep after that. But here's the thing, it did change things. Not dramatically, not like he started being mean to me or anything like that, but there's this layer of awkwardness now that wasn't there before. He's a little more careful. He changed in the bathroom once, instead of just in the room like he always did. Little things that he probably doesn't even realize he's doing, but that I notice constantly. And I get it. I really do. He's probably just figuring out how to navigate it. But being in that room every day, with that layer of weirdness sitting between us, is genuinely exhausting. And I don't know if I should say something about it, or just wait it out, or ask to be moved to a different room, or what. I don't want to lose the friendship, but I also don't know how much longer I can just pretend everything is normal when it's not. Okay, so first of all, I think you handled the actual confession really well. You were honest. You weren't putting pressure on him, and you gave him an easy out. That took guts, and I think you should feel good about that part. Now, the awkwardness, I think what you're experiencing is just kind of the unavoidable aftermath of a moment like that. And the hard truth is that it usually just takes time to settle. Marcus is probably not doing any of those things intentionally. He's likely just recalibrating, figuring out where the lines are now that he knows how you feel. And that recalibration process is a little clunky for everyone involved. It doesn't mean the friendship is broken, it just means it's adjusting. That said, if weeks go by and it's still this heavy and uncomfortable, I do think it's worth bringing up directly. Not in a big emotional way, but just something low-key, like, hey, I just want to make sure things aren't weird between us, because I really value this friendship, and I don't want what I said to change it. Sometimes just naming it out loud takes some of the pressure off. The room transfer thing is a last resort in my opinion. I wouldn't go there yet. Give it some time, give him some space to find his footing, and see if it levels out on its own. It might surprise you. All right, next email. This one is titled, I found the other group chat and I don't know what to do with it. I'm 17 and about 3 weeks ago I found out that my friend group has a separate group chat that I'm not in, and they use it to talk about me. Here's how I found out. One of the girls in my friend group, I'll call her Priya, left her phone on the lunch table when she went to throw something away. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't trying to look at her phone, but a notification came through while it was face up, and I saw my name in the preview, and the message wasn't nice. I didn't touch her phone, but when she came back and picked it up, she must have seen something in my face, because she got really flustered and grabbed it really fast and changed the subject. And I just sat there for the rest of lunch, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. That night, I was venting about it to a friend who's not in this group, and she told me, kind of carefully, that she had actually heard about the chat a while ago from someone else, and assumed I already knew. She said she didn't know how bad it was, or how often they used it, so I've spent the last 3 weeks knowing this exists, and not saying anything to anyone in the group. I still sit with them at lunch. I still reply to our main group chat. I still show up to things. And the whole time I'm just sitting there knowing that there's this whole other conversation happening about me somewhere that I'm not allowed to see. I screenshotted the notification before Priya picked up her phone. It's not much, just one message, but it's enough to confirm what I know. I guess my question is, do I confront them? Do I just quietly pull back from the group? Do I pretend I don't know and just let it die on its own? Because I genuinely have no idea what the right move is here, and all three options feel terrible in different ways. Yeah, all three options do kind of feel terrible, and I think that's because there isn't really a clean way out of this. So let's just think through it honestly. Confronting them, the case for doing it is that you'd get to stop pretending and you'd find out the truth about what's actually being said and why. The case against it is that group confrontations almost never go the way you want them to. Someone will get defensive, someone will deny it, someone will turn it around on you, and you'll probably end up feeling worse than you do now, even if you technically win the argument. If you do go that route, I'd say don't do it in a group setting. Pick the person in that friend group that you trust most and have a private conversation with them first. Not an accusation, just an honest conversation. Hey, I saw something on Priya's phone a few weeks ago and I haven't been able to shake it. I just need to know what's going on. That gives you more information before you decide what to do next. Pulling back quietly. This is honestly what I'd probably do in your position, and I don't think it's the cowardly option. It's just the option that protects your energy while you figure out who in that group is actually in your corner and who isn't. You don't have to make a big dramatic exit. You just slowly become less available and start putting that energy toward people who aren't talking about you behind your back. The pretend nothing's wrong approach. I think this only works short term, and it's going to quietly eat at you the longer it goes on. You've already been doing it for 3 weeks, and look where you are. The hardest part of all of this is that you didn't do anything wrong. You just saw a notification, and now you're the one sitting with all the discomfort and trying to figure out how to manage it. That's a really unfair position to be in. But here's what I'll say. The fact that you've handled it this calmly for 3 weeks already tells me you're going to be okay, no matter which direction you go. Thanks for writing in. By the way, if you want to submit your own story, the email is ralvostories@gmail.com. The link is in the description as well. Alright, this next one is titled, Am I being paranoid or is something actually going on? I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years. Things have been pretty solid for most of that time. We don't fight a lot, we have similar values, we talk about the future. I've genuinely never had a reason to not trust her. About 4 months ago, she reconnected with a guy she grew up with. I'll call him Danny. They were close as kids, apparently, lost touch for years, and then found each other again through some mutual friends at a birthday thing she went to without me. And I want to be really careful about how I say this because I know how it's going to sound. But ever since that night, something has felt different. At first, it was just that she mentioned him a lot, which, fine, she reconnected with an old friend. It makes sense that she'd talk about him. But then they started making plans, and the plans started happening every weekend. She goes over to his place, or they get food, or they go to a market or whatever. Every Saturday, sometimes Sunday too. I've met Danny once, briefly, at a birthday thing a couple months ago. He seemed fine, normal guy. My girlfriend was different around him though, like lighter, more animated than I'm used to seeing her, which I know sounds like a terrible thing to be bothered by. I know that, but I noticed it. I've tried to bring it up twice. The first time she said I was being insecure, and that she was allowed to have friends, which, yes, completely true, and I agreed with her. The second time, she got a little more frustrated and said that Danny had been going through a hard time, and she was just being a good friend to him, which also sounds completely reasonable. And here's where I'm stuck. Both of those things she said are true, and I have no actual evidence that anything is wrong. I have no texts I've stumbled across, no weird behavior with her phone, nothing concrete, just a feeling, just the every weekend thing and the way she looked at him at that birthday party. Am I just being paranoid? Is this just what jealousy feels like, and I need to get over it? Or is a gut feeling sometimes worth paying attention to? Okay, So I want to give you a genuinely honest answer here, rather than just telling you what you want to hear. The things you've described: she reconnected with an old friend. They hang out regularly. She seems happy around him. She got defensive when you brought it up. None of those things on their own are evidence of anything, and I think you already know that, which is why you're writing in, asking if you're being paranoid. But I also don't think gut feelings are nothing, and I think dismissing yours entirely just to seem like the reasonable, non-jealous partner isn't really serving you either. Here's the thing I'd actually focus on, though. The way she responded when you brought it up. The first time she called you insecure. The second time she got frustrated. And I understand that being asked about a friendship repeatedly is annoying. I get that. But if your partner comes to you twice saying, "Hey, I'm feeling a little off about this," the response that actually helps is not calling them insecure. It's having a real conversation about it. The defensive reaction is the only part of your email that I think is worth paying attention to. I'm not saying something is definitely going on. I genuinely don't know, and neither do you. But I do think you're allowed to have a third conversation that goes a little deeper than the first two. Not an accusation, not a list of complaints about Danny. Just an honest, calm conversation where you tell her that you're not trying to control who she spends time with, but that you've been feeling disconnected lately and you'd really like to understand what's going on with her. If she meets that with more defensiveness, that tells you something. If she actually slows down and engages with it, that also tells you something. A gut feeling with no evidence is not a reason to blow up a 3-year relationship, but it is a reason to have an honest conversation. This next email is titled, "My coworkers are making me feel weird about a friendship that I think is fine. So I'm 21 and I work at a coffee shop, and I've been there for about 1.5 years. It's a good job. I like most of the people I work with, and the regulars are mostly great. There's one regular in particular that I want to talk about. I'll call him Walter. He's 58, comes in almost every morning, always orders the same thing, and we started chatting probably 6 months ago. At first it was just small talk, how busy the morning was, that kind of thing. But over time it became more of an actual conversation. He'd ask how my week was going. I'd ask about his. He mentioned once that he used to teach high school history for 30 years and just retired, and we ended up talking for like 20 minutes about history stuff because I'm actually really interested in it. It was a genuinely good conversation. Since then, we've just kind of developed this routine. He comes in, I make his drink, and if it's not too busy, we'll talk for a bit, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes longer. He's recommended books to me. I've told him about the classes I'm taking at community college. It feels like the kind of friendship you don't really expect to find, but that just makes your day a little better when it's there. The problem is my coworkers have started making comments about it. Nothing outright mean, more like nudging and smirking. Things like, "Oh, here comes your boyfriend," or "Wow, he really loves talking to you," with this tone that implies something weird. One of my coworkers pulled me aside a couple weeks ago and said she was just looking out for me, and that she thought it was strange that an older man was spending so much time talking to a young woman at a coffee shop. And I didn't really know what to say to that, because on one hand I hear her, and I know that kind of thing can sometimes be a warning sign. But on the other hand, everything about my actual experience with Walter has just been genuinely nice. He's never said anything that made me uncomfortable. He's never pushed for more than our conversations at the counter. He doesn't linger after he's done with his coffee. He's never asked for my number or suggested we hang out outside of work. He just comes in, we talk, he leaves. But now I've started second-guessing everything. Like I'll be in the middle of a perfectly normal conversation with him, and suddenly I'm just watching myself from the outside, trying to figure out if there's something I'm missing. And it's making me feel like I'm going crazy a little. Are my coworkers right? Is this something I should be worried about? Or am I allowed to just have a nice friendship with a regular customer? So here's my honest take on this. I think your coworkers care about you, and I think their instinct to look out for you comes from a good place. And I also think that the thing they're reacting to, an older man who talks to a younger woman at a coffee shop regularly, is something that has been a warning sign in enough situations that it makes sense to flag it. I get why they did. But the thing about warning signs is that there are patterns to be aware of, not automatic verdicts. And when I look at the actual details you've described, the things that would actually concern me aren't there. He doesn't linger. He hasn't tried to move the relationship outside of the coffee shop. He hasn't said anything that made you uncomfortable. He's not asking for your number. The content of your conversation sounds genuinely normal. History, books, your classes. That's not grooming behavior. That's just two people who found a conversation they both enjoy. The thing I'd keep paying attention to is exactly what you're already paying attention to, how it actually feels. Not how it looks to your coworkers, but how it registers to you in the moment. You've been in these conversations for 6 months, and your gut hasn't told you anything is off. That matters. If anything ever shifts, if he starts pushing for contact outside of work, or says something that makes you feel weird, or starts treating the friendship like he has some kind of claim on your time, trust that feeling immediately and shut it down. But a retired teacher who comes in for coffee and talks to you about history is not automatically a threat just because of the age gap. I think you're allowed to have this friendship. Just keep doing what you're already doing, which is paying attention. Thanks for writing in. This next one is titled, I found something I wasn't supposed to find, and now I don't know what to do with it. I'm 16, and about a month ago I found my parents' divorce paperwork. I wasn't looking for it. I was searching through my dad's desk for a phone charger because mine had broken, and I knew he kept a bunch of random cables in there. And in the back of the second drawer, underneath some other papers, there was a folder. I didn't open it looking for anything. I just saw the word petition on the tab, and something made me look. It was a divorce petition. Both their names on it, dated about 6 weeks before I found it. I closed the folder and put it back exactly where it was and found the charger, and went back to my room and just sat there for a really long time. Here's the thing that I keep getting stuck on. My parents seem completely normal. Like nothing has changed as far as I can tell. They have dinner together. They watch TV together at night. My dad made my mom laugh really hard about something just last week. There is no tension that I can see. No sleeping in separate rooms. No cold silences at the table. Nothing. And I don't know what to do with that. Either the paperwork means what I think it means, and they're just incredibly good at hiding it, or there's some explanation I'm not aware of, or I misread what I saw. But I've gone back over it in my head 100 times, and I know what I saw. I haven't said anything to either of them. I haven't told any of my friends. I've just been carrying this around for a month, completely alone. And it's honestly starting to make me feel a little unhinged. I'll be sitting at dinner, watching them be normal, and just thinking, is this real? Do they know I know? Do they have any idea what this is doing to me? I don't know if I should bring it up or just wait for them to tell me. But waiting is killing me. And what if they never tell me? What if they're planning to just drop it one day out of nowhere? I'm sorry. I just needed to tell someone. Okay. First thing I want to say is that carrying something like this completely alone for a month at 16 is genuinely a lot, and I'm glad you told someone, even if it's just an inbox on the internet. Now let me try to actually be useful here. The honest truth is that I don't think you should bring it up right now. And here's my reasoning. You found something in a drawer by accident, and you've been interpreting it for a month without any other information. Divorce paperwork can mean a lot of things. It could be something they're actively pursuing. It could be something they started and stopped. It could even be something from years ago that just never got thrown away, though I know that's probably not what it was. The point is that you're working with one piece of a picture you can't fully see yet. If you go to them right now and say, I found the folder in your desk, you're not just asking a question. You're also admitting you looked through the drawer. You're potentially forcing a conversation they're not ready to have with you, and you're putting yourself in the middle of something that might still be unresolved between them. None of that is your fault, but it could make an already complicated situation harder. What I'd actually suggest is finding a way to talk to one of them, whichever parent you feel closer to, about how you're doing. Not about the folder. Just genuinely check in. Sometimes when kids open that door a little, parents will walk through it if there's something they've been trying to figure out how to say, and if nothing happens and they don't tell you, and the waiting keeps feeling impossible, it is okay to eventually just say, "Hey, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." You're 16, not 6. You're allowed to ask your parents hard questions, but give it a little more time if you can. And in the meantime, I really hope you find someone in your real life you can tell. Next up, this one is titled, "Someone Keeps Taking Credit for My Ideas, and I Don't Know How to Handle It." I'm 23 and I graduated college about 5 months ago and just started my first real job. It's at a mid-sized company, nothing glamorous, but it's in my field and I worked really hard to get it and I was genuinely excited when I started. There's a coworker, I'll call her Simone. She's been there for about 2 years, so she knows the place well. And she took me under her wing a little bit when I first started, showed me how things work, introduced me to people, explained the unwritten rules of the office. And I was really grateful for that because starting somewhere new is disorienting and having someone help you find your footing makes a huge difference. But about a month in, I started noticing something. It happened the first time in a team meeting. I had mentioned an idea to Simone the day before, just casually in conversation, not formally pitching it or anything. And then in the meeting the next morning, she brought it up as her own, presented it fully, got a good response from our manager, and I just sat there not sure if I was actually remembering things correctly. I told myself I was probably being oversensitive, that maybe she had been thinking about the same thing independently and I was just connecting dots that weren't there. I let it go. Then it happened again. A different idea, a different meeting, same result. I mentioned something to her in passing, and 2 days later she's presenting a version of it, like it came from her. This time, I was more sure of what I was seeing, but I was still so new that I just didn't feel like I had any standing to say something. It's now been about 2 more months, and it's happened at least 4 times that I can clearly identify, and I've started to feel this low-level dread every time I have an idea. Like my first thought is no longer I should mention this, it's I need to be careful about who I tell this to. Which is a terrible way to feel 5 months into your first job. I don't know what the right move is here. I'm still new. I don't have the kind of relationship with my manager where I can just walk in and make a complaint, and I'm also not totally sure how to prove any of this, given that it all happened in casual conversations with no paper trail. I just know that it's been affecting how I show up at work, and I don't know how to fix it. Okay, so this is one of those situations where the answer is pretty clear, but the execution is really hard, especially given where you are in your career. The thing you need to start doing immediately is creating a paper trail going forward. The next time you have an idea that you think is worth sharing, send it in an email to Simone, to your manager, to whoever is relevant, even if it's casual. Something like, "Hey, I was thinking about this and wanted to share it while it's fresh." That way, the idea and the timestamp and your name are all in writing before anyone has a chance to present it as their own. It's also worth starting to share ideas directly with your manager more. Not only through Simone, you don't have to frame it as going around her. You can just naturally start being a little more visible in terms of where your thinking is coming from. The goal is that your manager starts to associate ideas with you directly, rather than hearing them filtered through someone else. As for Simone, I wouldn't go in with an accusation, but I do think there's a version of a direct conversation that's worth having. Something like, "Hey, I've noticed a couple of times that ideas I mentioned to you came up in meetings shortly after, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page about that." You're not calling her a thief. You're just making it clear that you noticed. Sometimes that alone is enough to change the behavior, because the person realizes they can't count on you staying quiet. The hardest part of this is that you're new, and you feel like you don't have power yet. And that's real. But the longer you say nothing and do nothing, the more it becomes a pattern that's hard to undo. Start with the paper trail. That's the lowest risk first step. So this next email is titled, "She Finally Moved Here, and I Think I Liked It Better Before." I'm 25, and I've been with my girlfriend for about 2 years. For the first year and a half of our relationship, we were long distance. She was in a different city about 4 hours away, and we'd see each other maybe once or twice a month, sometimes less. And honestly, despite the distance, it was a really good relationship. We talked every day, We looked forward to the visits, and when we were together, it always felt really intentional, like we were both fully present because we knew the time was limited. About 5 months ago, she moved here, got a job transfer, found an apartment close to mine, and we were both really excited about it. I'd been wanting this for a long time. I thought being in the same city would just make everything better. And here's the part I feel genuinely terrible about saying out loud. It hasn't been better. If anything, I felt more disconnected from her since she moved here than I ever did when she was 4 hours away. It's hard to explain exactly. When she was long distance, I missed her, and that feeling of missing her kind of kept everything sharp. Now she's just here all the time, and instead of feeling closer, I feel like we've both kind of gone on autopilot. We see each other a few times a week, but the visits feel routine in a way they never did before. We watch something, we get food, we go to sleep. There's nothing wrong with any of it exactly. It just feels flat in a way that scares me. I've also started noticing things about her that I don't think I noticed before. Not deal breakers, just little things. The way she interrupts sometimes, the way she handles conflict, which is mostly by going quiet and waiting for me to fix it. Small stuff that I probably didn't see as clearly when I only had her in concentrated doses. And I'm sitting here asking myself the question I really don't want to ask. Did I love the idea of her more than the reality of her? Was the long distance actually doing a lot of the work for us this whole time? I don't want to break up with her. I don't think I want that. But I also don't know how to get back to feeling the way I used to feel, and I don't know if that's even possible. Okay, so I want to be honest with you about something first. What you're describing is more common than you'd think, and I don't think it automatically means what you're afraid it means. Long-distance relationships have this built-in intensity that in-person relationships just don't have. When you only see someone once or twice a month, every visit is an event. You're both on. You're both present. There's an expiration date on the time you have together so you don't waste it on autopilot. And then when the distance goes away, all of that artificial urgency goes away with it. What's left is just the regular relationship. And regular relationships, even great ones, can feel flat compared to that. So before you start asking whether you love the idea of her more than the reality, I'd ask a different question first. Have you actually tried to bring some of that intentionality back now that you're in the same city? Because I think what you might be missing isn't her specifically. It's the feeling of effort, the planned visits, the countdown, the sense that the time together mattered. None of that has to disappear just because she lives nearby now. You can still plan things. You can still make time feel intentional. It just requires a little more conscious effort when proximity makes it easy to be lazy about it. The things you've noticed about her, the interrupting, the going quiet during conflict, those are worth paying attention to, but I'd be careful about reading too much into them right now. You're in an adjustment period. Everything is going to feel more exposed than it did when you were only seeing each other at your best. I think before you make any big decisions, I'd try deliberately changing the texture of how you spend time together for a month or so. Plan something, go somewhere, do something that isn't just the couch and takeout. See if any of that old feeling comes back when you give it something to attach to. If you do all of that and it still feels flat, then it might be worth having a more honest conversation about where you both are. But I don't think you're there yet. This one is titled, I Feel Guilty for Being Excited to Leave. I'm 18 and I leave for university in about 6 weeks, and I've been looking forward to it for years. New city, new people, finally getting to study something I actually care about. Every time I think about it, I get this feeling in my chest that I can only describe as relief. And that's the part I feel guilty about. My family is not bad. I want to be really clear about that. My parents love me. They've supported me. They've done a lot for me, and I know that. But our home has always been a lot. My dad has a temper that runs hot and cold, and you never fully know which version you're going to get. My mom manages everything quietly, and I've watched her manage it quietly my whole life, and I think somewhere along the way, I started doing the same thing. Just reading the room constantly, keeping things calm, making myself small when I needed to. I don't think I even realized how much energy that took until I started imagining what it would feel like to not have to do it anymore. And now I'm 6 weeks out, and instead of just feeling excited, I feel this weird guilt underneath it, like I'm abandoning them somehow. Like me leaving is a betrayal of something, even though nobody has said that to me directly. My mom cried when we dropped off my deposit, and she said she was just proud of me, but I've been thinking about that moment ever since. I also feel guilty because I think I'm going to be okay. Like, genuinely okay in a way I'm not sure I've felt at home in a long time. And there's something about that that feels like an accusation against my family, even though I don't mean it that way. Is it possible to love your family and still desperately need to get out? Because right now it feels like those two things shouldn't be able to coexist, but they're both true at the same time. Yes, it is completely possible, and I want to say that clearly because I think you need to hear it said clearly. Loving your family and needing space from your family are not opposing forces. They can both be true at the same time, and one doesn't cancel the other out. The fact that you're relieved to be leaving doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you've been carrying something heavy for a long time, and you're about to put it down for a while. That's not betrayal. That's just being a person who has needs. The thing you described, reading the room constantly, keeping things calm, making yourself small, that takes an enormous amount of energy over years and years. And a lot of people who grow up in homes where they have to do that don't even realize how much of themselves they've been managing until they get some distance. The relief you're feeling isn't guilt. It's your nervous system recognizing that something is about to change. Your mom crying at the deposit drop-off. I don't think that was an accusation. I think she's just a mom watching her kid leave and feeling all the things that comes with that. It doesn't mean she needs you to feel bad about going. And it definitely doesn't mean you should go with anything less than the full excitement you've earned. Here's the thing about leaving. You're not disappearing. You're going to call. You're going to come home for holidays. You're going to be a part of your family's life from a different distance. But that distance is going to give you something really important, which is the chance to figure out who you are when you're not managing everyone else. Go. Be okay. Let yourself feel the relief without punishing yourself for it. Those two things you said at the end of your email, loving them and needing to leave, they're both true and they're both allowed. All right. Last one. This one is titled, I just want to tell someone that it gets better. I'm 29, and I know this is probably a different kind of email than you usually get. I'm not in crisis. I don't have a dilemma. I don't need advice. I just wanted to share something good because I feel like I'm about to burst, and I don't know where else to put it. For most of my 20s, I genuinely believed that there was something wrong with me when it came to relationships. Not in a dramatic way, just this quiet, persistent feeling that I was somehow not quite right for anyone. I dated, I tried, I put myself out there more times than I can count. Some relationships lasted a few months. One lasted almost 2 years. And they all ended with the same feeling, like I was always slightly off. Like I was almost what someone wanted, but not quite. I'm not someone who falls apart over breakups. I've always been pretty steady. But that steady feeling started to come with a cost, which was that I stopped really expecting things to work out. I'd start seeing someone, and there'd be this small voice in the back of my head saying, "Don't get too comfortable." And I mostly listened to it. I kept one foot out the door in every relationship I was in, because some part of me thought that was just the smart thing to do. And then about 8 months ago, I met someone. I'm not going to say it was magical, or that I knew immediately, or anything like that, because that's not really how it happened. We met through friends. We got coffee. It was nice. Just nice. Easy to talk to. Made me laugh. No performance required. I drove home thinking that was pleasant, and not much more than that. But then we kept talking, and kept meeting up. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, I realized that the small voice in the back of my head had gone completely quiet. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't keeping one foot out the door. I was just in it, fully in it, without even making a decision to be. We moved in together last month, and I know that's fast, and I know what it probably sounds like from the outside, but it has just been the most natural thing I've ever done. I keep waiting to feel scared, and I just don't. I guess I'm writing this because I spent a long time reading and listening to stories about relationships that weren't working out, and I wanted to put one into the world that is. To anyone out there who has that quiet voice telling them not to get too comfortable, I just wanted to say that voice isn't always right. Sometimes it's just wrong. Thank you for writing this. Genuinely. I read a lot of emails about things that aren't working, and people who are hurting, and situations that are complicated and messy. And I'm glad I do, because I think there's real value in feeling less alone in those moments. But an email like this one is something different entirely. The detail that got me was the small voice going quiet, because I think a lot of people know that voice and have just accepted it as part of who they are. Like it's just the soundtrack to their love life, and they've stopped expecting it to ever stop. And you're saying it stopped, not because you made a decision or fixed something or followed some kind of advice, just because the right person showed up and made it unnecessary. I think that's actually a really important thing for people to hear. I hope you and this person have a genuinely wonderful life together, and I hope the other shoe stays exactly where it is. And that's it for this video. Thank you for listening.